Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we have the pleasure of having Allan Paul Roberts on the show. Allan Paul Roberts is an author dedicated to exposing the globalist agenda to collapse society and usher in a new world order. In his explosive new book, The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order, in their own words, Roberts reveals this strategy with compelling detail, directly citing key players. Using an innovative writing approach featuring QR codes, he creates an interactive multimedia experience that deepens readers' understanding of complex topics, which is super helpful. Known for his clarity and precision, Roberts engages political thought leaders and newcomers alike, empowering audiences with knowledge to confront today's challenges. Hi, Allan. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole. I'm really excited to have you.
Hey, Danny, so good to be here. Can't wait to get this conversation going.
Can we let's back up before you started this book, before you wrote this book, because you wrote it in like 3.5 months, so fast. What happened? How did we even get here before we even get into what the book is?
Okay, so yeah, I was this came from out of nowhere. It totally shocked me. It was not a plan. So as I've said a couple other times on podcasts, I own a small business. I usually can't get done what I need to get done, and I'm, cramming on the weekend to try to catch up for what I should have got done during the week.
Right.
So no plans to write a book. So, but what happened in late April 2024? I woke up at 4 in the morning, just laying there for a minute or so. No nightmares, nothing odd. Just woke up. I'm laying there, and I was hit with what I just call a flash of instant knowledge. I mean, it was there in a millisecond, and it stayed there as if you would turn a light on something, and all of a sudden you can see it, and
Yeah.
it's there until the light goes away. But what I perceived all at once were six pillars of American society that were under attack and methodically being worked on to take them down.
Hmm.
And it stunned me. And I didn't even think about like where it came from. I was just, this thing lasted from a half a minute to maybe 2 minutes. It was just this awareness, like not how they're doing it, not what's being done, just like matter of fact, this is coming down if we don't stop it. And so I got up and I wrote that down on some paper and pen I keep in the bathroom, and was really thinking about it, and went back to bed. It's 4 in the morning, so trying to get back to sleep. And I was just laying there for a minute or two thinking about it, and then I was hit with another flash. It's just like wham, three more, three different pillars, also under attack, in danger of coming down. And I'm like floored at this point. I get up and I write them down. And now I'm in bed back again. Now I have nine pillars in total I'm thinking about. It's like, yeah, just kind of like puzzled about it. And two more hit me the same way.
Wow.
Yeah, at this point, I'm like, the third time's a charm. I just, you rip the covers off. It's like, what is going on? I wrote these down, and I felt like it had to be a God moment because, I pray every day. It's part of my routine, 30 minutes to an hour and a half every morning, first thing. So I'm in the mode of seeking direction,
Hmm.
but I never get anything that has a clarity like this. Like I might just get a sense, how it is, like you need to make up with somebody. You should do this. You should
Right.
do that. Just your conscience kind of thing. But this one was a mental clarity that was supernatural is the only way I can say it.
Wow.
Like I know this sounds weird, but like, they say God can perceive everything at once.
Hmm.
Well, for the first time ever, I was able to perceive, like in the first round, six things simultaneously, completely perceive them without being distracted. It's not like as if you had six TV screens and you could go back and forth. It's
Hmm.
just if the knowledge of that was just coming into you all at once equally without being
Wow.
distracted by the other five. It was nuts.
Yeah.
And so um, after these last two came, I'm like, God, what is going on? Why are you showing me this? These aren't religious things, except one of the pillars is. But 10 out of the 11 have nothing to do with religion at all or faith or anything like that. And so I'm like puzzled, like, why would you be showing me this? And no answer. And then I just kept thinking about it. Why? And I said, do you want me to write a book? And if you want me to write a book, what's the title? And that was like, wham, the same thing,
Wow.
just flash the whole title. And it wasn't a sequence of words that I perceived. It's just all at once I knew it. The globalist plan to collapse everything to usher in a new world order. I instantly knew that title. And and so in my mind, it was just like, okay, I guess you want me to write a book, and the purpose is to investigate these 11 pillars of society. So I'll search for the proof. That's what I'll do. I'll write a book about the evidence. And so that was the core of the book. And then on the front end, it leads you into it like, what is globalism? Who are the globalists? What are they trying to achieve? And then we get into each of the 11 pillars and the evidence for that. And then on the back end, what do we do about it? How do we
Yeah.
cope? How do we push back? How do we try to stop it from happening? Because I personally believe that, like, when God reveals something to somebody, you can take like the Old Testament prophets. Most of the time, it was a warning, and there was the option of changing the future by how we react to it.
Hmm.
The clearest one is the story of Jonah and Nineveh. Jonah is running from God. God tells him, go to Nineveh, this huge city at the time, enormous, like forget how many days, 3 days walk from one end to the other, something like that. And, and Jonah wants nothing to do with it. He's hiding, he's running from God, gets on a ship to try to escape him. He gets thrown overboard. All of a sudden, this huge storm, he gets thrown overboard. And because he had told the people on the ship he was running from God. They're like, "What's this storm all about?" It's me. I'm running from God. They throw him overboard to get rid of the curse.
Right.
And the story gets
Yeah.
swallowed by the whale. 3 days later, he's up. But then he's going through the town. 40 days and Nineveh will be destroyed. 39 days and Nineveh will. Well, everybody repents from the king on down, and God doesn't destroy Nineveh. And then the best part to me is Jonah's all ticked off at God. You made me look bad. You said you're going to destroy it, and now people think I'm a fool. But that was the point, was not to destroy it. It was to provide the warning. And I'm in my gut, I feel that that's what this is about. It's not doom and gloom, but it is something we need to know about and do something about.
Were you a conspiracy theorist before this? Like, did you believe in the New World Order and all of that coming into this book?
Yeah, I mean, I knew about it. For me, it was like not an obsession, but kind of like a hobby to be up on alternative news sources.
Hmm.
But I wasn't. It wasn't. I don't know what to say. I was aware, but not like really into it, like some people who know all the
Right.
details. So some of the pillars didn't surprise me because of that knowledge, but
Hmm.
like at least half of them totally surprised me. Like I wouldn't have thought of that. You know what I mean? And I remember even when it was happening, I'm like, wow, I never thought of that. And it's because it was coming from outside me. I
Yeah.
had this reaction like, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. And uh, so that's how the thing started out. And it was I didn't get back to sleep after that third one.
Of course. Yeah. You're like, I'm up.
It's like run downstairs, make some coffee, pull out my tablet and pen, and just start thinking about how am I going to do this. I just started jotting down notes on some of the pillars, and my wife comes down. It was about an hour or two later, and she's like, "I'm like, you're not going to believe what just happened to me." And
She's like, you're crazy.
she knows me. I was expecting real pushback, and she goes, "No, I totally believe that." And I'm thinking, what? And she said, well, when do you want to get started? You should go to the beach or go to the mountains. You need to get away and just like heads down, clear your head and just have some time to do this.
You have
And
an amazing wife for sure. She's like, yeah,
yeah,
just
she's
go
something
do it.
else, man. Yeah. And so that's what I did. This was the end of April. I booked 8 nights at the week starting mid-May. I still remember it's May 17th when we checked in. And we'd go to breakfast together and dinner together, but other than that, it was heads down research and writing till 11 o'clock at night, all 8 nights. And then after that, it was every weekend during the summer, Saturday morning to 11 p.m. Sunday night, trying to take some weeknights in between, even taking time out of my day and my job, cleaning up what I'm writing. And I was I wouldn't say I was obsessed, but I was about as motivated as you could possibly be because I felt like it was meant to be. So like, I mean, I was on fire. I was just researching and writing and editing and, getting people to check it and make typo corrections and, suggestions like, hey, this doesn't make sense. I don't understand how you connected these 2 points. You need to clarify, that kind of process. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
but yeah, that's on fire. I mean, almost 300 pages in 3.5 months.
That's crazy. And then
Yeah.
so how did you find an editor to or like a publisher to publish the book?
Well, it's self-published. I mean,
Okay.
I've had so this is what it looks like. Whoops, can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. And it to a lot of people, it doesn't look like a self-published book. It has the look of something that's publisher backed, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody's going to touch this. And I mean, maybe some publisher would, but it would be hard to find. So I just did the self-publishing route.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't matter because it's available everywhere. I mean, like everywhere you can buy online books, like even Target. If you go to Target and look up the Globalist Plan to collapse, it'll come up. So
Which is so interesting because it's been banned. It's just been banned from advertising though, you said. So from like Facebook and Amazon, they won't let you advertise it on there,
they won't let me
but
advertise
they'll
it.
still sell it.
Yeah, Amazon will sell it all day long,
Of
but they
course.
won't let you advertise within Amazon.
They're like, just don't tell anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And the crazy thing is, most weeks it's within the top 1% within its categories,
Wow.
within the categories that it's rated in to be within. So it sells well, but yeah, it's just crazy. And yeah, I worked with, now I run a marketing firm, but I worked with a marketing firm that specializes in social media to try to get it out on social media. And even there, it was blocked on all kinds of, yeah, like Facebook ads and everything.
Of course.
Um, the best I can do is some Instagram, promote some Instagram posts, but those are just little short clips,
Yeah.
and you got to be really careful there. So it's infuriating, but
Oh, absolutely. I do the same thing for my podcast, and that's the best I can do. Is like a short clip in hope that the clip doesn't get banned before I can post it, like boost it for somebody to see, hopefully.
yeah,
Well, can we get into what the 11 pillars are and like kind of break those down a little bit?
sure. And yeah, before I did this, I just wanted to say that the book also, besides the QR codes that it has, it's got a lot of graphics, which I used AI to generate. And I just wanted to show you this one because it applies to your show, but it's in the book,
Oh, perfect.
The Rabbit Hole. Anyway, but yeah, so the 11 pillars, I'll just read the 11 and then we can jump into them wherever you want to. So
Okay.
arranged from most obvious to least obvious, I felt this is the sequence: national borders, security and police protection,
Mm-hmm.
privacy, banking and finance,
Yep.
education, environment, but not the way most people think of environment. This is mostly the air with chemtrails and in the water and the food.
Yeah.
Um, the medical system, the food supply, in the last two are unlike all the others. Self identity
Interesting.
and faith. Faith itself is a pillar of society that's required to really hold it together. So those are the 11. So we can jump in wherever you want.
Yeah, I feel like I, this is gonna sound silly because like to you it might not have been so obvious, but to me I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That makes so much sense because of the things that I've covered on this podcast. I'm like, yeah, of course they're trying to take down these things. I think that with borders, like getting rid of the borders because it's a new world order, you want like everyone to just be everywhere.
A borderless world. Yeah.
That's wild. And then when it comes to like the police, basically like the defund the police movement, because wouldn't you want the opposite?
Yeah. It's so obvious, isn't it? That and the two go together. They work in tandem. So you open the borders, which
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in the US they've been sealed, but we're still dealing with the implications of 4 years of wide open borders.
Mm-hmm.
But like in the UK and
Yeah.
Europe, they've been wide open since 2011 with no slowdown whatsoever. I mean,
And
it's
they're
a
having some serious
disaster.
issues. Yeah.
Yeah, same with Australia. But you open the borders, so you introduce more crime. more lawlessness, more people that don't have anything to do because they don't even have jobs. They're just coming in. I mean, it's trouble. And not to mention all the military age, the way it's skewed toward
Hmm.
military aged men, that's a whole nother question.
Yeah.
But you combine that with the reduction in security, reducing the number of police, defunding them, having DAs that won't prosecute crime, that look the other way, steal $1,000 per day per store and we won't touch you. And, it's mayhem. They're trying to
Right.
introduce instability, but then also with the open borders, they're trying to erase each nation's sense of national identity, their heritage, their culture, their traditions, their norms,
I can see that.
just
Yeah.
just the respect for society. So, with the borders, I mean, the U.S. Um, allows more legal immigrants than any other country in the world, and has. Ellis Island going all the way back. So we welcome immigrants, but in an orderly way where you
Right.
learn the Constitution, you learn what we're about, and at the end of that process, typically most people are going to have some real respect for the country and our democracy and how we operate. But when people just flood in unchecked, there's none of that. They're just coming in with their culture, no respect for the U.S., and it's just inviting a disaster. And it's happening all over the Western world, which is kind of proof that it's a top-down globalist push
Right.
because it's too consistent in too many places to be a coincidence.
I feel like that's always like the like one of the key factors that you can see if it's consistent, if it's being pushed globally, like that it's orchestrated.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
What do you
it's way
say? Oh,
too
sorry.
consistent. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're okay. What do you say to like people that because I feel like there's always those people that are like, it would be so easy if the whole world was the same, right? Like if my culture and your culture weren't different, that way I always knew what to expect. So what do you like, how do you combat those people that are all for this no borders, no cultural differences type environment?
Well, I mean, I think it's a pipe dream because culture goes too deep for it to ever be homogenous. I mean, if you look at, let's just take the most glaring example, the Arabs and the Jews, or
Hmm.
that conflict, which has been going on pretty much since history's been written, almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look at places in Europe. The Baltic area, how they've always been at war with each other, and um, the other thing is it's good to have separate cultures. So I used to travel in my prior job. I've been all over Europe. I've been to Japan, China, Australia, um, and each culture is different, and each culture is cool in its own kind of way. I mean, it's a great thing that we have these differences in
Yeah.
cultures. If we were all the same, for one thing, I don't think it could happen because people don't want that. But if you forced it all to be the same, it would be the most boring, drab. It would probably have to be a tyrannical dictatorship to force it to all be the same. And actually, coincidentally, that's kind of what they want, right
Right.
down to a one world religion, a one world government, even a one world language,
Hmm.
are all part of their plan. So, yeah, they are trying to make it all the same, and we've seen this play in the past, like in the Soviet Union. They tried to do that. Men and women are identical, dress the same. They try to eliminate differences between cultures and the lands that they conquer. It's not a new idea, but it never works, and it's hell on earth, really.
But if they do that, then that makes sense why they would want 15-minute cities. Like, I don't know if your research took you here, like where like the New World Order and 15-minute cities kind of go, or like smart
Yeah.
cities go hand in hand because there's no reason to travel if everybody's the same.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what if you just like to travel because you want to see the West Coast or the East
I
Coast
mean, I
or
agree with
just
that. Yeah.
see the sights? Yeah, I think in their goals, the reason for the smart cities, the 15-minute cities, is just to have their thumb on you. Yeah,
The surveillance state.
they'll say it's global warming, and we want to reduce your carbon footprint. I mean, I guess there's some case for less pollution if you're not traveling, but they obviously don't believe that because they jet set all over the world in their private jets.
Yeah.
Uh, they go to their annual meetings, and everybody's flying in a jet, burning up thousands of times the amount of carbon that they would if they flew commercial. So, and then they build their homes by the ocean and claim that they're worried about the seas rising, and
Right.
but they all do it.
They're like, the sea's gonna rise. Everybody should move away from the ocean. Perfect. Now we can move in and live there.
Yeah, exactly. And now it's nice and barren the way we like it.
I so I've done research in the New World Order, and I never put these two things together until just now when you said it. They want one world language, but didn't that happen in the Old Testament? And God was like, "No, you guys got to stop talking to each other because the Tower
True.
of Babel and all of that."
Yeah. Yeah,
So
exactly. That's a
that
great
goes
point.
back to the faith pillar, I feel like a little bit, because they're like, "Yeah, let's destroy that.
Yeah.
Let's go against what God wanted." And I might have that wrong a little bit. I'm new to the Bible and reading through it and
Hmm.
religion, everything, new to faith. So I'm if I misquote it, I apologize.
No, that's okay. No, it is so true. They're trying to return it. Almost everything that they want at some level or in some way, it can be thought of like as anti-God, anti-God's plan. So take the transgenderism movement to pretend that men and women are the same when obviously they're different in lots of ways. And
Hmm.
that's a good thing. Just like
Yeah.
cultures are different, we complement each other. We don't, it would be terrible if we were identical. But yeah, so we're different, but they try to pretend that everything's the same. Again, with the language is trying to make that just one consistent language, erasing that. Everything goes from amazing and wonderful to bland and tyrannical and just miserable in my mind. That's kind of how they are. And, um, they really want to take away our freedoms. And if you look at when they start to get their way, like I would argue that during the COVID crisis, they were using that to as a means to test us to try to get more control over us. And you saw, especially in certain blue states, how the governors became really tyrannical. Like they'd lock down businesses, they'd throw you in jail.
Yeah.
Police would come around if you tried to open your business. You're not wearing a mask, or geez, you're not wearing a mask out in the middle of the ocean on a canoe that's just you in the open air and the seagulls. I mean, the level of tyranny, how quick they will jump to tyranny, to me was one of the most frightening things about that whole thing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but
You think
yeah,
that was
it's
like a test to see how much they could get away with?
I think so too. And it was people argue it's a similar thing with the TSA after that shoe bomber tried to light his shoe bomb, that now we had to take off our shoes and all that. It was now they just reversed that a couple months ago finally.
Thank
But
God.
it's
How
basically to
gross.
introduce this you have to do what we tell you thing, getting you used to that kind of big brother approach, do what I tell you.
When we see that with like the surveillance state and like the privacy, they're taking away our privacy. I just covered the Patriot Act in depth a little bit over here, but can you go into that pillar?
Yeah. So the privacy, let me pull up my quick notes here because I'll have a better
Yeah, of
deal on
course.
that for you. So the thing about privacy is that, and I'm sure you've been through this since you've been covering 9/11, but 9/11 was really the excuse, I believe, to introduce the surveillance state in a massive way. And the big play was, you know, these buildings have been attacked, 3,000 people died, and therefore we must intercept foreign communication so that we're not vulnerable to this happening again. That's
Hmm.
kind of it in a nutshell. And that introduced the Patriot Act, which had all kinds of eavesdropping on foreign communications, which then later turned into eavesdropping on everybody and still is today. Um, we saw a little bit of that with the J6ers, how anybody who was in the vicinity, whether they went into the building or not, a lot of them got visited by the FBI. Many of them got thrown into prison without a trial, let alone a speedy trial of their peers that they're supposed to be entitled to.
Hmm.
And many of them were just kind of rotting in prison for 4 years until they were pardoned. But that's an example. But uh, the thing that happened is everything changed then, and so our cell phones no longer have a removable battery, so that you can be tracked all the time.
Yeah.
Because even when and there's a article in there in the book, a QR code will take you to an article that proves that your cell phone tracks you even when it's turned off. So there's still a signal. It's not really off when it's off, I guess, is the point. And even if you have all your settings set to, you know, have the most privacy possible, the operating system, whether it's the Apple or the Android operating system, it is still tracking you regardless and in detail. You went from point A to point B, you stopped there for 8 minutes, you went to point C, you stopped there for 3 minutes. It knows exactly everywhere you went and for how long. Um, but so that came into play. And it was funny because I was in a store, a phone store in a mall, not too long after 9/11, and I wanted to get a new phone. And back then, you know, it was nice to have a couple extra batteries because it
Yeah.
wasn't as easy to charge as they are today. So I wanted a phone and I wanted to get two batteries, and there were no models that had a removable battery. I'm talking to the guy at the counter. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, they don't do that anymore." And I'm like, "Well, why not?" And he said, "I don't know. You can't get them. The batteries are all built in now." So yeah, it's kind of how they kind of gradually roll things out, and they're very careful to do it in slow stages so that we're not alerted to it
Yeah.
unless we really have our eyes open. But you probably know the drill. After we came out of the lockdowns, at least where I live, cameras on every corner
Yep.
that were not there before,
Hmm.
5G towers all over the place that weren't there before.
Yeah.
And how did that happen? Just so happened that while everybody's kind of locked down, they just magically all appear by coincidence all across the country.
Oh,
You know?
it just happened. It just happened that way. It was
Yeah,
convenient because nobody was out, so it was a good time to do construction.
right. And we
It's
didn't see it
stupid.
coming and had no plans to do that. But
It was just it happenstance, coincidences.
oh
Although
yeah,
we say here on the rabbit hole, we don't believe in coincidences. Like it's just it doesn't make any sense. Like none of it was a coincidence. You guys made it happen on purpose. So
well, one of the most amazing things to me about the whole 9/11 thing was the Pentagon hit. Did you
yeah.
talk about that? How
Uh, so I
the
talked
whole
about that when I did the 9/11 episode, but not when I did the just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did like a invasion of privacy episode where we talked more in depth about the Patriot Act and then about like flock cameras popping up, about smart meters on your houses, like tracking your patterns of life and just everything like that. And so, but I did talk about the Pentagon. I haven't talked about 9/11 in years, actually.
wow. Well, the Pentagon hit. I mean, that hole in the side of the Pentagon was only about 30 feet wide.
Hmm.
And the type of plane that hit it, that hole should have been like over 140 feet wide. That's the wingspan. So there's no way a 30-foot hole, but the 30-foot hole is very consistent uh, with a cruise missile. And that's
Yeah.
probably how they did it. And because there were no plane parts, no body parts, no nothing.
No
On the
luggage, nothing.
the FBI's official website just has, and it was like 7 years later, they show like some tail numbers and just a couple pieces of debris in a field, which they could have taken at any time. I mean, they waited 7 years to post anything.
Right.
But even what they posted was weak.
Well,
So,
and they have light poles like leading up to where the plane would have come down, like would have probably knocked down all the light poles, right? Like you got a wingspan, you got a big plane, and all the light poles are still standing on their way to the Pentagon. You're like, are you kidding me?
magically dodged that.
Like this doesn't make any sense.
And there was the same thing in Shanksville. This
Yeah.
plane was supposed to have disappeared into a hole, again, 30-foot hole, cruise missile size hole, and no parts anywhere. I mean, I feel stupid for believing it, but nobody was talking about it at the time because it was all this fear, which they always
Yeah.
use, just like with with the lockdowns. It was all fear based, and So when people get in a fearful mindset, we don't think clearly. We make very fast, rash decisions, and it's just embarrassing, really, that we fell for this.
Well, I talk about this back and forth because like for us, it's easy to be awake to it and aware of it because we're aware of all these other things. But for like the average everyday person who's never been even like presented with the evidence or the ideas that like the actual narrative is not the correct narrative, they
Hmm.
wouldn't ever think about that. And so I try to give people grace because I'm like, there was a time and a place when not all of us believed in everything.
That's
And
true.
so, but I feel like they do this every time, right? It's something like fearful. They're like, "Oh, this big scary thing just happened. We terrorists just ran planes into our twin towers. Now we need to pass all these security measures so that way that never happens again." And we're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, of course. Like almost 3,000 people died that day. Let's do something." Right?
Hmm.
We want to rally because we want people to not have lost loved ones. Well, they orchestrated that. That way they could pass the Patriot Act. They could do like
Yeah.
TSA, all these different things that they've done after 9/11. And we just buy into it.
Yeah, and the thing that's harder to come to is that they actually plan these things in advance. And that's very hard to accept because in
Yeah.
order to come to that conclusion, you have to believe they're capable of that level of evil. And that's hard to do
Yeah.
because we're not capable of that. Normal people are not capable of that. But sociopaths who have no empathy for other people are capable. And sociopaths who have all kinds of power and money and are teaming up together can pull off things we would never believe, because we're not evil like that. And we're not without feelings. We're not without a heart. But some people actually are.
Which is wild. I think that, yeah, you're right. That's the hardest thing to wrap your brain around. Because, like, I think about all those people that died, and to them, they're like, oh, casualties of war. But to me, I'm like, no, that person was a father, a brother, a mother, a wife, like all these things to people. Like, they had people. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know. You're right. It's too hard for us to really wrap our brains around.
I mean, on the plus side, you had like the brave, really selfless first responders who headed into that, with
Yeah.
all that danger. And, there's people like that today too that will really sacrifice themselves or their safety for someone else. So there's always a lot of good in the face of evil. And that, we have to remember that
And keep fighting.
and
Yeah.
keep fighting. Yes. Yeah.
I think that goes hand in hand with like the environment things that they're doing, like the chemtrails and the food and the medical industry. I think all these things go together, in my opinion. You want to talk
Yeah.
about these pillars a little bit?
Sure. So let's jump to environment.
Yeah, we'll start there because literally yesterday I was walking and I'm seeing chemtrails in the air. And I live in the middle of nowhere, rural, middle of nowhere. And so, but it's perfect grid lines. There's like three lines going this way, three lines going this way, and they are going to disperse and fall down. Like, but again,
Yeah.
rural, I bet, I mean, I already know there's a lot of food grown in our area.
Yeah. So you get into the environment. The funny thing, or it was for me, I thought it was kind of funny, odd. Out of all the things, I really found the chemtrail thing the hardest to believe.
Really?
I have friends that would talk about chemtrails, and I would think, you're nuts. And and then when I started researching the evidence for it, it was so overwhelming that I felt like the stupid one for holding them off on that.
I think, again, we all go through this. Like, we're
Yes.
like, no way, this cannot be real. And then you do the research, you're like, okay, it is
Yeah.
real.
Yeah. So there's what really convinced me, there's a website called geoengineeringwatch.org. And the head of that, the guy's name is Dane Wigington. And he created an hour and a half documentary, really solid, called The Dimming. And it's about what's being released through these chemtrails. And during that 1.5 hour documentary, from time to time, they'll zoom in like with a camera, a telescopic lens on a camera, and they'll zoom into the volume of gases being dispersed on these chemtrails, and it's so enormous, it's hard to even describe.
Hmm.
It would be as if you had the dragon smog flying through the sky and just these billows flying out many times his size to the left and right. That's the size of these chemtrails. But they'll show the plane with nothing's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like they flip a switch and boom, all of a sudden it's just coming out, flip a switch off again. But Dane Wigington and his crew were able to, excuse me, they were able to acquire a NOAA aircraft, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to get them to fly up into the chemtrails and actually take samples.
Okay.
And so, using the sensitive instruments that they have, they're able to collect air samples, and they found toxic levels of barium, strontium, and aluminum. And I forget how many, millions of tons are released in the atmosphere all over the world, not just America.
Yeah.
But the effect of it is a few things. They claim it's to protect against climate change and overheating the earth to reflect the sunlight back up into the sky.
Right.
And it actually does do that because we've noticed around here that the planes are dispersing chemtrails. I'm in Pennsylvania much less often than they used to. We actually notice a difference in the brightness of the sky.
Wow.
If you, I don't know where you are, if you have days where there's lots of trails and days where there's hardly any,
Yeah.
pay attention to the quality of the sunlight. The sunlight is actually different, as if it's not being filtered, you
Huh.
know? Yeah. And it happened. I mean, it's really being cut down around here. So there were sometimes we'd have like 4 or 5 days with no chemtrails, and you could really see the sky look bluer. Everything looked more vivid around you.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you wouldn't notice unless you're really paying attention, but it's real. But so these chemtrails, we are constantly being bathed, and I say we, the humans, the animals, the plants, the fields, the water, is constantly being showered with this barium, aluminum, strontium, and over time, it has a terrible effect because the aluminum itself contributes to Alzheimer's.
Yep.
It contributes to Alzheimer's like symptoms even in the insect population.
Wow.
And they claim this is part of the reason the bee population is down so much, is because the bees actually are confused. They don't know how to do what they should be doing, some of them. And
Well, and they get lost. They can't find their way back to their hives.
yeah,
And they're like, I don't know why the bees are lost. And you're like, well, because you're spraying things in the air.
yeah, no
Like,
kidding. And so it affects the bees, but the opening to that chapter is a Volkswagen Beetle. They used to call it the bug, with
mm-hmm.
like bugs all over its windshield. And this is just kind of like an example of how this book flowed. Is going into this chapter, I remember having the thought when I was a kid and we drove somewhere, the windshield was covered with bugs
Yeah.
by the time we got there in the summer, almost like where you wanted to pull out an ice scraper. And if you made the terrible mistake of putting on your windshield wipers, even with the washers, you just had this white, massy sludge all over, and you had to stop anyway and clean it off. Now I can drive several hours in the summertime and hardly have a bug on my windshield.
Wow.
And and
I
and
guess I never thought about that before.
yeah, have you noticed that? I mean, did you remember
Yeah.
when I'm older than you, so there'd be a bigger difference, but this has
But
been
no,
going
there's
on for
still a
about
difference though, because
yeah,
like, yeah, I remember, I mean, we still get bugs. I think where I live, there's a lot of bugs anyway, but I don't get nearly as many bugs as when I was a kid.
yeah. And
Hmm.
so in the research, I found that the flying, they call it the flying insect biomass, and they said it's been reduced by 75% in
Wow.
27 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, I mean, that affects the bird population. I mean, there's probably less birds too.
Hmm.
That would affect everything, the whole,
Frogs, like everything
yeah,
that eats bugs. I
yeah,
mean, fish.
exactly. I mean, and it affects the soil too. So, the studies I read show that the soil's like, I think it's 10 times more alkaline than it should be. And so a couple things happen. Number one, there's not the variety of different fungus and that different in insects and stuff in the soil that help aerate and loosen the soil, make
Hmm.
it easier for crops to grow. And so because of that, they're forced to use more fertilizer than they should. And the fertilizers aren't perfect, so they cause imbalances that then have to be treated with other things. And so it's like back and forth, almost like, you go to the doctor, he gives you a pill for this, and that causes a side effect. You get another pill for that. What's the
Yeah.
same thing with the soil. And it's all because all this stuff's being rained down on us constantly.
Which I think leads into the food conversation because I'm a huge advocate for like grow your own food because if you have as much control over your own food, then you know that you're getting good stuff. But even then, you don't because they're raining down all these chemicals all over your soil and your food and everything. Your animals, if you have animals to slaughter and eat, like everything.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's all interconnected. But on the food supply, the chapter starts with the kind of famous quote by Henry Kissinger: "Who controls the food supply controls the people."
Hmm.
And tyrants have been doing this for centuries, as long far back as you can probably go. But um, so a few things are happening. Um, and I'll get into this in a second, but just at a high level, they're reducing the food supply, which makes it more expensive.
Yeah.
They're altering the quality of the food supply so it's not as nutritious.
Hmm. Which can get you
And
sick.
you put those two things together, and you've got a recipe for disaster if it's allowed to keep going. But one of the most interesting things to me is I remember when Tucker Carlson was still on Fox. Um, a couple months before he was booted off there, um, he did this segment on what in the world is going on with the fires at food plants.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
he had
Hmm.
the statistics. And what really got my attention is he said, "You're not going to believe this, but just during this week while we were researching and getting ready to film, two planes ran into two separate food facilities, crashed into them from the sky in 1 week during the 1 week." And
How is
so
that
that,
even possible?
yeah, how is that possible? Yeah. And so that really piqued my attention. So I did research on the number of food fires at food plants that there were. And what it turned out was, and this study was 2021 when things were still normal versus the first 6 months of 2022 when they were ramping up on all the food fires and uh, uh, food plants being destroyed for whatever reason.
Hmm.
So in 2021 there was an average of 10 for the whole year, a little less than one a month on average. The first 6 months of 2022 there were 90,
Oh my
so it
goodness.
was 15 per month. And so I have a graph in the book that where you can visualize that. So you see 2021, it's this little line, and you see 2022, and it looks like, a 20-story building compared
Yeah.
to, and that's the difference.
Which I feel
And
like
it,
10 in a year is still a lot, but
yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's reasonable because there's probably a lot of food plants, right? But 90?
in 6 months,
Oh my
in six
gosh.
months. And then on top of that, they introduced, they call it, calling the herd when they do a PCR test
Hmm.
on a chicken. And a PCR test is known to be totally unreliable. It doesn't tell you anything specific at all, but they'll do a PCR test and then claim that the chicken has the bird flu, even though they're asymptomatic. They're not showing, they don't look sick, they're fine.
Right.
We do the test and we declare that this chicken has it, so therefore you must call the entire flock. So here's the statistics just from the first half of March 2022, because 2022 is when the fires picked up.
Yep.
2022 is when they start just slaughtering chickens left and right. So now I only recorded the events in the book where at least 100,000 chickens or turkey were destroyed. But just listen to these numbers. We'll go about halfway through
Okay.
March. March 4th, 2022, 294,000 chickens, Stoddard, Missouri.
Oh my
March
gosh.
4th, 2022, same day, 644,000 chickens, Cecil, Maryland. 4 days later, March 8th, 243,000 Newcastle, Delaware. 2 days later, March 10th, 663,000 chickens, Cecil, Maryland. Same
Wow.
day, 915,000 chickens, Taylor, Iowa. 4 days later, 2.7 million chickens, Jefferson, Wisconsin. And
Wow.
this is the worst one. This is the 17th. I mean, we're only halfway through the month. 5.3 million chickens at an egg farm in Buena Vista, Iowa.
Oh my
So you
gosh.
wonder why egg prices were going off the roof. Supply and demand. Kill the
Yep.
chickens, prices go up because there's not as many eggs around. So,
That's
you know,
happening
they,
right now with cows, right? So I go to this local it's a store in our town, but she's like a local farmer, and she was telling me that cows right now, they can't import cows from I guess like Latin America, which is where we get a lot of our cows because they all have some disease. So we can't have
is that
any
right?
cows come in. Well, but America itself doesn't have a lot of cows right now because a couple years ago they had to kill a bunch of heifers, so they don't have as many calves being born because we just don't have as many mothers. So now the beef prices are going to go way up because
And they have been. Oh
yeah,
my
because
gosh.
we just don't have the cows to eat.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's on so many levels that, I mean, no matter how, let's just say we had the perfect president in there. I'm not saying we do, but what if we did? There's so many things going on. Could anybody really get this under control? I mean, they have to pick and choose and try to divide up people and put them where they can to get things done. But then if you add on top of that, that even with the best of intentions of everyone that's hired at the highest levels to try to get things done, you go down a level and you have people that have been there for a decade or more a lot of times.
Hmm.
And a lot of them are pushing back, trying to block the
Yeah.
policies from going. I mean, look at it with the judges. We see this all the time. You try to do some common sense thing, the judge says, oh, no, 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 not allowed to do that. And then you got to take it. Everything's on hold, goes up to the Supreme Court. Usually they overturn it. And
Yeah.
then now we're on our way again. But all this effort to just block and put on the brakes is there. And so we're just up against a massive group of people who just don't want what's best for this country or the world, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
Did your research in the food bring you across like what's going on with the vegetables like and the fruits, why they're like rubbery and weird?
Well, the we get in a little bit to just the gene altering. So when they say bioengineered,
Hmm.
what that most people don't really think about it. I mean, I didn't think about it till it's like, okay, you want a grape without seeds. That sounds great.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're actually literally editing the DNA of the plant. So they
Hmm.
are gene altering, and they're messing with the balance within that plant. Like, we don't know exactly what's going on, but almost everything is bioengineered now, and a lot of it's bioengineered to be able to resist like Roundup that they spray on the weeds. So the plant is Roundup tolerant. Um, and to become Roundup tolerant, that can be toxic for humans. And so we're getting
Yeah.
all these allergies, like wheat allergies, peanut allergies, these allergies that we didn't used to have before. In many cases, they claim it's because of this. And the wheat and the oats are the worst, like
Yeah.
oatmeal. And so, it's like, who can afford who when they're at the age where they're raising kids and have multiple kids in the family can afford to buy all organic food, organic milk, organic meat, organic chicken, organic eggs. I mean, it's expensive enough without it being organic.
And
Hardly
I mean,
anybody
we
can
try. I
afford it.
have young kids right now. We try, and because I'm aware of it. So like I really want to buy like the really good stuff. But instead what I end up doing a lot of times because it's time or money at this point. So I can buy like organic flour and then make a snack at home that's like more organic or like more as natural as I can make it
Yeah,
versus like buying a snack that's like organic, natural, blah 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 blah. Well, but then I have to put in all this time to make the snacks and to go through all the like
right, right.
it's impossible.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And so have you ever have you ever tried to find something in a box that's not geoengineered, which says contains a bioengineered product? So, they have the ingredients, but then about an inch below it, where you wouldn't be looking, it says contains a bioengineered ingredient.
Yeah.
And somebody on a recent podcast said, why don't they ever tell us what that bioengineered ingredient is? That's just a blanket thing. Oh, it contains a bioengineered ingredient. We don't know what's bio. Is it the wheat? Is it the salt? I mean, what is it? Like
Right.
they don't, no clue. It's just that's enough. Just there's something in here that's not good for you, but we're not going to tell you what it is.
They don't want you to know because then you could isolate it and you could replace it with something else, and then they don't want you to know because they want you to ingest the disgusting food because that keeps us sick, which I think leads us. And I'm not trying to jump. I know we're still talking about food, but leads us into the medical industry, I think.
Exactly. Big food, big pharma. It seems like they're working together.
Yeah,
The food makes you sick. You need the pharma. The pharma doesn't really solve your issues in many cases. It just puts a band-aid on it so that you need to keep taking that thing forever.
makes you sicker. Yeah.
Makes you sicker, then you need other things. And yeah, I mean they definitely tie together, the food and the pharma, I think, from a high level view. But the thing about the food is this is happening with the food plant fires and the reduction in the food supply. Again, indicating to me that it's a global effort, is it's happening all over the world.
Hmm.
So in Brussels, Belgium, the farmers were so outraged at the number of farms that were being shut down and the higher taxes they were putting on the farmers, and even taxing their cattle and everything like that to try to lower the greenhouse gases, as if that's going to lower. You got to eat anyway. What are we
Right.
going to we're going to have less cows because you're taxing us? But they were so outraged with it that there's a scene in the book using the QR code, which the book has 175 QR codes. 100 of those are videos, but one of those QR codes links to a video where you can see the farmers spraying manure
Yeah, I remember
all over
this.
the buildings
Yeah.
because they're so outraged, with the police buildings and everything. And the police cars are back there and they're like bombing the police cars with this stream of manure. It's kind of hilarious in a way, but it's an indicator of how outraged they are. And I saw another video. It's not, this one's not in the book, where they were actually shooting at some of the farmers. The police were on the
Wow.
tractors. Yeah. And
Because they were like shutting down towns. Was this in Brussels that they were like driving their tractors? They were like parking all over all the streets so nobody could go anywhere?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They're just I think it is Holland. Holland is the second most prolific exporter of food in the world. I guess they're behind the U.S. But they've shut down farms by like over 10,000 farms have been shut down in the second biggest agriculture producer for export in the world. I
Which is
mean,
a
it's
huge thing to say
horrendous.
because they're so much smaller than we are. So like
Yeah,
them being the second exporter of food, like that's huge.
that's incredible.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like you can't shut down their farms. We need them to eat and to survive.
Yeah, it's all over. And so their price of food is just going through the roof, and the quality of food. Yeah. So, the thing with a lot of this is that at the very top, these organizations work together hand in glove with each other. So, just as an example, if you take like the UN, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and Bill Gates, just to talk about four of them. So the UN has a big influence over about 193 member countries, and it wants to implement what they call Agenda 2030. You own
Yeah.
nothing, you'll be happy. The World Economic Forum has a tight influence over the world's top 1,000 corporations, and it's also backing Agenda 2030. That's the World Economic Forum. The World Health Organization, the WHO, is the agency of the UN responsible for public health,
Hmm.
international public health. And then Bill Gates is the chief financier of the World Health Organization. And so these people all know each other. They work together, and you get on Bill Gates. It's just amazing how many things he has his hands in. He has his hands in worldwide vaccines.
Yeah.
Um, he's working with big pharma. He
Hmm.
has his hands in farming. He's the largest owner of farmland in America,
Yep.
and and he's also, pushing the fake meat, trying to get us to quit eating real meat. He's got his fake meat company. I mean, he's just everywhere, and they have so much power, and they work together. That's what makes them powerful.
Do you think that they're doing this, like controlling the food, trying to shut down the farms, trying to modify all the food? Basically, do they want to grow all the food in labs so they can control what you're ingesting? They can control exactly how much nutrition you're going to get from the food? Is that the goal of this?
Um, if it were if it were that, you could say on one hand, well, maybe that could be a good thing if they could control it in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is probably one of the hardest things to accept. If we go back all the way to the 70s, there's been talk about sustainability, and sustainability goes hand in hand with population reduction.
Okay.
And I believe in the long run, they want population reduction.
Well,
And
Bill Gates openly said that.
yeah, he did. He did. He openly said it. He said if we do a good job with vaccines and a few other things, we could maybe reduce the world population by, I don't know, 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Vaccines to reduce the population by 10 to 15. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just him, it's the globalists. Again, going back to the 70s, they're very out there with their desire to reduce the world population. And ultimately, I think this is part of that. It's to reduce fertility.
Yeah.
Um, since the uh, since the lockdowns, that crisis associated with the lockdowns, fertility has been dropping like a rock.
I call it an epidemic. People don't
Yeah,
believe me, but I'm like, no, there's a fertility epidemic. Like women cannot get pregnant. And it's not just on the women's side, but I mean, women get pregnant.
yeah,
Men are also not producing enough sperm or
yeah,
don't have like viable sperm to create babies.
yeah. It's really falling, and especially among the group that took that thing that was out in 2020.
Yeah.
Especially there. And yeah, it's all about fertility. And even if women get pregnant, the rate at which they successfully carry all the way until birth is also declining rapidly.
Yeah.
And
There's so many babies born in like the 20 to 30 week range of gestation, which is dangerously dangerously low for a baby to be born.
yeah, yeah.
Like it's terrifying.
Yeah, so in the front end of the book, what are the globalists, and who are they and what do they want? It talks about population reduction and that being the most difficult thing to accept, but they talk about it a lot. And later in the book, there's the Georgia Guidestones, which have since been destroyed,
Hmm.
but they were like the globalist version of the Ten Commandments. They were these, 6 inch thick, I forget how tall, 16 foot
16,
feet
yeah.
tall. Yeah. Granite slabs, enormously expensive, which had I'll call it their 10 commandments. And the first commandment was about reducing the world population to a manageable level of 500 million people. And there's like 8 billion.
Yeah.
So
They were
that's
really
like,
cool. I got to go see them before they got destroyed.
oh,
They
did
were
you? Wow.
they were really cool to see, but and it was like like 6 months maybe before they were destroyed, not even.
Wow. Wow.
Like they were really cool to see. Really scary kind of because the way that it lays it all out, like the very first thing is reduce the population, then everything else follow. You're like, this is freaky.
It
Like,
is. It is, but they really believe that. Some of them believe that. And I've heard other ones talk about reducing it to 2 billion. That's still a 75% reduction in the number of humans. Um, but one of the ways you can reduce people without actually killing them outright is to reduce the fertility rate over time. And ultimately, you could have a declining world population just through the fertility rate
but
alone.
then how like we need people still. Like so then eventually you would need people that can have babies. This feels like it could turn into a handmade situation like really quickly,
Oh, I
actually.
know it could go out, could get out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know this is fortunately your show is called, the Rabbit Hole Conspiracy, so I don't have to scare anybody away with this, but if you saw movies like the Star Wars series, one of those has this episode where you're in this faraway place within the galaxy where all the babies are being born in like these not test tubes, but these like little bulbs,
Hmm.
um, basically being engineered by science. Science is deciding, and Orwell in 1984 talks about that same thing,
Yeah.
where babies are born in labs, not from parents.
Doesn't
And
Brave New World talk about that too?
Brave New World,
Yeah.
yes, you're right, Brave New World. That's actually what I was thinking of when I said 84, but it's Brave New World, yeah. And so and the guy that wrote the Brave New World, I've heard it said that he was not only in the club, but he was actually trying to warn people about where this was heading, where their ultimate long-term goals were. So
That's
if you
so
think about
terrifying.
it, yeah, if they can control it the way they want to control it, they could make it so that there's 500 million people being born, and the only way to be born is to go through science because they've basically harmed everyone's genetics enough that they can't produce it on their own anymore.
That's
That's
so
creepy.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah, that's creepy. That's why we can't let these people win.
I want to jump to the personal identity and like how that's like why is that a pillar and what are they doing? Like how are they attacking that?
Sure. So, like I said, this was one of the ones that really surprised me.
Yeah.
Um, but personal identity, in the book, I really only focused on the main aspect of it which is our sexual identity and things that are related to that, because it was a hot issue and there's so much going on. But when I had that revelation, the other sense I got was it's also our identity of who am I as a person in my family? Who am I as a citizen of my country? Who am I in terms of my nationality and my heritage?
Hmm.
It's actually all of that. But the most dangerous one is who am I as my sexual identity, and the idea that these children are being manipulated to get them to question who they are in a way they never would have. It wouldn't have been in their wildest. Boys know what a boy is, girls know what a girl is, and
Yeah.
everybody knows there's a difference at that age. Um, and but yet in these schools, they're getting them to question what they are. Like, maybe you really are a girl, even though you look like a boy. Do you ever think about that? And then on top of that, there's a lot of evidence that in many cases they're hiding this from their parents. Like, don't tell your parents, and they're encouraging them to transition.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's very, very evil and manipulative, like trying to take the place of the parent. Um,
Which leads us
and
into the education pillar too. I feel like a lot of these pillars
yes,
tie together, but I understand why they're separate too.
yeah. So the ultimately, if you can get boys and girls, young men, young women to be unsure of who they are, you've introduced a level of instability into their psyche that affects everything. Um, if I'm not sure of what I am, that's a huge distraction, right?
Hmm.
Um, and and not only that, it weakens who we are as male and as female. So, as a male, from a Christian perspective, the idea is that you should be leader, protector, provider. That's part of your key parts of your roles as a male within a
Right.
family, right? But if I'm not sure what I am, how motivated am I to step into that? If TV is confusing me every time I watch a sitcom, that the man is always the stupid one who has to be corrected by the woman every time.
Hmm.
And I like to say this just to show you how obvious this is. Can you think of one commercial you've ever seen where the woman is made to look foolish compared to the man? I cannot think of one.
No, you just said that, and I was like, actually, you're right. Like, I don't know the last time I saw. a sitcom that yeah, that makes the man look like the provider, like he's like yeah, they're all like goofy, silly. Hmm.
Yeah, and think of the commercials.
Yeah.
It's always the woman educating the stupid guy on what they should be doing.
Yeah, I think of like the first commercial that popped in my head was like a like laundry soap of some sort commercial where she's like, "No, like this is how you would do it, or smell it now, like, or you stink, let me do the laundry better, or whatever." Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but
and it's just so many ways.
yeah,
There's one where there's this couple where a friend of theirs died and they didn't have insurance. You might have seen this one, and the woman goes, "Well, we have insurance, don't we?" And the guy like rolls his eyes. Well, I was waiting to see if we could afford it. And then I don't remember if she picks up the phone and finds the insurance or what, but that kind of thing happens a lot in commercials. But
yeah,
so here you are as a young man, you're growing up with this over and over and over again. And then to make it worse, you go to see a Marvel movie and this 98-pound woman is beating up the 250-pound guys all around here, flipping them over the banister or something with by doing this jump where she grabs him by the neck with her ankles and tosses him off the cliff or what, I mean, just like ridiculous stuff. But yet when women are in men's sports, we see what the real difference is, but
hmm
none of that is real within the Marvel world, let's say. But you just see it over and over and over again. And so what happens, and then you add on top of that the video game distraction for young men, and they are growing up without knowing what a man is, many of them.
hmm
They're growing up without a role model. I mean, unless there's a father in the home who really models it, it's very tough for them. They're at a very big disadvantage. And I've talked about this before, but take your daughters to work. I've never heard of us take your son to work. It's
Huh.
always just take your daughter. Why do the daughters only get to go to work? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, where is it? The boys are playing video games. They're distracted. They don't know what or who they are. So many of them.
Well, and that's another epidemic I feel like is happening in our society is the destruction of the nuclear family. Like children, and I don't know where we got off this train thought that like children need both a mom and a dad
Yeah.
to like understand how to be. Like women, as hard as we try, we can't teach young boys how to be men. We just can't do it.
Hmm.
And vice versa, like dads need to show little girls how they should be treated, but moms teach them how to be women. Like you
Yeah.
can't really teach your kids without both sides.
Right. Right. And so both sides work together, and it's like I said, it's good that there's a difference, and we shouldn't try to hide that difference or pretend it isn't there, but just to show the difference. So, I mean, I had a good mom and a good dad. I really have no complaints about it. They were good people. They tried to, raise me the right way and all that. But and my mom was able to stay home. She didn't have to go to work while I was in my younger years. She
hmm
did later, but so when I would come home from school, it was always a good feeling, like mom's here. It's just a good feeling. And occasionally, when there were days when she wasn't there for some reason, that house felt so empty without her there, and it felt empty in a way that void would not have been filled if my father was there instead. It's just not the same. Like the nurturing power of the mother is a unique thing, and it's different than the best father could ever be. And I
Well, and I
mean that.
joke about
Yeah.
this with my mom friends. Like my
Yeah.
kids, my dad, my husband will be standing right there. Like he's right there in the kitchen, right next to me. And my kids will look at him and say, "Where's mom?" And he'll be like, "She's right here." And they'll be like, "Can I have a snack?" Like they could ask him for a snack. And it seems so silly, like such a small thing, but like they don't think to like dad can get me a snack. I mean, dad can obviously do it, but they're like,
Yeah.
"Where's mom? I want mom to get me a snack."
Oh yeah.
You
It's the
know?
nurturing. It's the nurturing thing. So yeah, boys are growing up with this confusion, many of them, and then girls also by
hmm
being taught that men and women are the same. And what they have to endure with these men and women's sports, to me, is the ultimate insult to a woman, um, to a young girl, to be denying the difference. And think about how frustrated they have to be when they've earned their way up into first, second, third place type of skill, and in come these trans women, they call themselves, just men pretending they're women, and just dominating wherever they go. I mean, how unfair is that? How frustrating would that be?
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine how angry that would make someone.
Well, and they've started speaking out about it because they're like, we don't like we have worked our whole lives to be the best in our gender, but we can't compete against a different gender. That's why there's women's sports and men's sports.
Exactly. That's why there's, different weight classifications within boxing, for example, or just take
Yeah.
anything.
And
We,
that's men on men. So you have a man that's 150 pounds and a man that's 250 pounds. They're not going up against each other. That's
right.
not fair.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, so it can be demoralizing and disorienting. So we have to be confident of who we are to be strong and powerful and effective in the world and to be able to stand against tyranny, people who want to manipulate us.
Do you think social media is playing a part in this?
I think I mean, it's so influential. People who spend a lot of time on social media can't help but be influenced. I mean, you've got the algorithms that tend to reinforce the things that you tend to look at. You get more of that type of thing. But yeah, I think it's very manipulative. I mean, yeah, they've proven how manipulative Google searches are,
Oh yeah.
to the point where, and I believe this is in the book, but Google searches will actually, you are classified by Google. This is in the book. You're classified by Google into a category, a general category. So a category could be like right wing extremist, could be a category, for example, right? But they could classify you all different ways. But if if you do a search and you're classified a certain way, they will actually alter the search to produce the opposite result. So
Huh.
if you've been classified as a right-wing extremist and you search on some evidence that would tend to support your view, they'll actually give you the opposite view. In other words, they'll pull up sources that dispute that um, that put doubt into your mind as to it. So it's really it's really evil. It's crazy because Google's initial motto was "Don't be evil," and they've probably become one of the most evil forces there is. In terms of how they manipulate us. Yeah.
That's probably why I get so many conspiracy theory debunks when I don't even use Google anymore, but when I do, I like look something up, they're like, "Oh, that's been debunked." And I'm like, "Okay." Like, of course you're showing me this. It's because I'm trying to find what the theory is and you want to tell me that it's not real. I don't care if it's real or not. I just want to know what the theory is.
Yeah, and you want the evidence for it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, well, so in the book, it compares multiple search engines. It'll compare Google to Yandex to Brave and one other one. Um,
DuckDuckGo. I
for
saw
DuckDuckGo, yeah,
yeah.
all for the same search, and it's amazing how different the results are. And because of that, I actually use the Yandex browser now
Okay.
more than Google. I'll try the same search on both sometimes, but Yandex will often bring up sources that Google would consider secondary sources, not the official, the New York Times, Wall Street Journal,
Right.
very left wing, but the official, kind of like the ones that we think as being the most knowledgeable, but aren't really honest with us.
Right.
Yeah,
They push whatever narrative they're trying to push, so.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it gets to you.
So how do we like what do we do? I know that this is like
Yeah.
t towards the end of your book, but like and I know we didn't hit all the pillars, but
Hmm.
what do we do?
Yeah. So working backward from the most important pillar, which I believe is faith.
Yeah, oh yeah, we
Uh,
didn't even touch on faith. I'm so sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay. But I mean, there's not time to go to everything. But just real quickly on faith, I'll just say one thing. The reason faith, I believe, is the most important pillar is because it is the one place where we form what we absolutely believe and therefore what we will not tolerate. Okay, it's faith that kind of forms that brick wall that says, "I'll go this far and no further."
Hmm.
And my favorite faith story is from the Old Testament. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, when they were ready to be thrown into the fiery furnace by King Nebuchadnezzar, who
Hmm.
was that was the biggest empire on earth at the time. It's like you'll worship the golden statue of me, or you'll be thrown into this furnace. And the furnace is all stoked high and everything, and they were caught not bowing down to the statue when the bell rang, and so they were brought before him. And this is faith. They said, um, our God is able to save us from your power. But even if he doesn't, know this, O king, we will not bow down to your statue. See, that's faith. That's the power they fear, is that resolve. And it is
Hmm.
people of faith. I mean, you look at like, the people who came over on the Mayflower seeking freedom, freedom of religion, all kinds of other freedoms. And you look at the American Revolution, how we were able to hold off the British, the biggest power in the world at the time. I mean, this would be like some little island going up against the United States. That was the difference. And they're a naval power all over the world, totally outgunned, but wouldn't give in. And, when you read the story of some of their founders, our founders, they knew what they were up against. They knew they could be killed. That's where the expression, one of them said, we need to hang together or we will certainly hang separately.
Well, and a lot of them, they died miserable deaths even after we gained our
Yeah.
independence.
Yeah.
So, like
Yeah.
they
They paid the
still,
price.
yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
they
But
were totally willing to do it.
yeah, and that's what faith, we hold these things to be evident that we're endowed by our creator with the gift of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's a core thing. And so it really is the most important thing. So what do? We should develop our faith. If we don't have much faith, we should think about how to develop it. Read the Bible, go to church, listen to people of faith and find out what they're about, and get a book on the saints. And you can get a book that's a saint a day. You can read what they went through. It starts to form your faith. And ultimately reach out to God directly and say, God, I don't know what I believe, but if Jesus is real, show me. And just an honest from the heart reaching out to God is really the first step. But develop your faith, develop the faith of your family, be responsible with your kids, take them to church, talk about faith, talk about God, talk about, you know, the lessons we learn, from Christ and from the apostles and from the Old Testament. We need to work on it and build it. So that's the first thing, is to build faith, and the next thing is to build that sense of self-identity. Make sure the boys have good role models and books and movies and things that encourage them to become strong, courageous, just, you know, um, uh, someone who's willing to defend the weak. That needs to be developed. It's a natural thing. They're going to want to do it, but
Hmm.
they have to be channeled down that path. And the same thing with the girls too. I mean, don't let it just be all about sports. Teach them the other things that they need to know. Don't deny the roles of male and female, but nurture each role. So those are two really important things we can do. And the book gets into all kinds of things. On the preparedness side, we call it coping.
Hmm.
And the big thing is, as our faith builds, we learn to overcome fear. And I had this experience myself, even though I am a person of faith. But in researching all this, at first it started off and I felt overwhelmed, in the sense that, can anything stop this machine from rolling
Yeah.
over us? It was just this sense of, this is too big to stop initially. And, I started thinking about, well, this was given to me for a reason. I thought about what I described to you with the city of Nineveh and everything, that God doesn't show us things to discourage us, but to encourage us and to change our path. And I just decided that I'm going to switch my focus from thinking like I was thinking to, I'm just going to think about whatever I can personally do to move this forward in the right direction, to get the word out, to open people's eyes. I think the main thing is we all need to become aware. If we become aware enough, we will naturally push back because nobody wants what they're trying to force on us.
Right.
Nobody wants the globalist vision for the world where you own nothing. It's 2030. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And
Yeah.
it even says other things. You'll eat much less red meat. It says we'll have to get used to a lot more migration. This was in 2020. They established this knowing that the mass migration was coming,
Yeah.
knowing there was going to be much less red meat, knowing that they were going to try to take away our freedom so that we own nothing. Um, so we got to say no. I said to one person on another podcast, there's two responses to this knowledge once it really embeds in us.
Hmm.
It's no and hell no. and, and we need to get to the hell no
Yeah.
stage and
I have
and
a
I'll start
question. Oh,
pushing back.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have a question about faith. I want to go
Yeah.
back to that a little bit. So, obviously you're a Christian man. Um, does it matter that it like what kind of faith it is? Just any faith? Like, because obviously our country is founded on the freedom of religion. Do people just need to have a faith in something? It could be Buddhism, it could be like Mormonism, Muslim, Christianity. It doesn't matter. Like, does it matter?
I think I think probably any type of faith helps somewhat, but I personally believe that it's actually the Christian faith that stands alone, because number one, I believe it's the truth. But if you look at the lessons of Christ and the apostles, they're unlike anything else in history. They are lessons about standing up to evil. They're lessons about the proper way to treat other people in terms of forgiveness, being able to turn the other cheek. That doesn't mean we're weak, but it means we are willing to give people the benefit of the doubt. We're not revengeful, but we're
Hmm.
strong. Um, and the other reason I think it stands alone, being the truth, we can reach out to God and He can reinforce us. And I actually think that's how it works.
Okay.
Um, you read the story of the prodigal son. The prodigal son finally realizes that he's been wrong all along, that what he's done to his father's wrong. He's disrespected him. And he comes to his senses and he says, I'm going to go home to my father. I'm going to apologize, say, I don't even deserve to be your son. Forgive me. And so the father sees him from a distance and comes running to him, to greet him, to forgive him, to throw a party for him. My point is, if we turn to God, He turns to us in a much bigger way. And so when we're not in this alone, we are not in this fight alone. So if we will have the courage to stand up, He will back us. And, there could be that we end up going to jail. It could end up that we end up losing our lives, some of us. But in the long run, evil is overcome. Evil is overcome because we align ourselves with God, who then backs our efforts. It's all about free world. It's like so many people, free will. So many people are like, why are there all these problems in the world? And to me, it's two words: free will. Free will. It's the greatest gift that we have. God could have built a robot army of robots that obey his every wish. He doesn't want that. He wants people with free will, cooperating with him, loving him, cooperating with each other, and building his kingdom on earth. And yeah, we have to understand what's at stake and then be willing to take the hit, for the greater good of our families, our fellow humans, our
Yeah.
brothers and sisters, actually. So, and I think the other reason I think it matters is because it is real, and when God gives you that power and conviction, you're able to do so much greater things than you would be otherwise. It's like the early Christian church was hounded and they tried to destroy it. But they say it's the blood of the martyrs that built the church.
Hmm.
And you can come out like a hammer against it, but ultimately it only grows stronger. It makes other people more convinced to be on your side when you stand up for good.
Yeah.
They say there's one thing that's more moving than being on the receiving end of someone's mercy is witnessing someone else being merciful to another person, being kind, being selfless. When you witness that, that makes you want to do it too. And so when you see people being harassed and thrown in prison and just going to the wall for what they believe, that energizes us to say, I'm not putting up with this anymore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. I really appreciate. I feel like I learned a lot. I Yeah, I'm sure my listeners learned a lot. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Can I tell them how they can get the book?
Please, please.
Okay. So if you go to globalcollapsebook.com, you'll see this book here, The Globalist Plan to Collapse Everything to Usher in a New World Order. From there, you can get links to get it on Amazon. But I think the cool thing is you can also get a signed copy. And it costs about the same price as an Amazon copy, just $1 or $2 more. Um, but I created a promo code for you, and that promo code is Rabbit. So if you
Perfect.
use promo code Rabbit, you'll get a discount. And the book's also available in sets of 3, 6, 12, and 18. The idea is to just spread the word. And
Yeah.
a signed copy is a pretty cool gift. Holidays are coming, so check it out. And there's also, you can read a chapter for free. If you go to you go to globalcollapsebook.com, you can click read and you can read a chapter for free. And you can also hear the intro. The book's narrated by me. It's available on audiobook as well. So check it out at globalcollapsebook.com.
And I'll link all that in the show notes. That way it's super easy for everyone to find. They can just click on it and go straight to it. So
Cool.
try to make it
Excellent.
as easy as possible for everyone to get to it. So
Awesome. Well, thanks, Danny. I've loved being with you. It's a great conversation.
I learned a lot. I appreciate it. So until next week, my friends, stay skeptical and we will see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast written, hosted, and produced by me, Danny Mercy. Special thanks to Lindsay for research and writing. If you love the podcast, please leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you're listening. Follow us on social media at rabbit.holepodcast and visit our website at stayskeptical.com for everything else.